All right, good morning or evening. It is currently 6:26, 6:25 on the wall clock. We draw this Community Development Advisory Council meeting to order. So we can get everybody to do their attendance, introductions. We'll start with Deborah Hogan in the upper balcony, mezzanine, whatever we want to call that.
Deborah Hogan, mayoral appointee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hughes, District 2.
John Brunza, mayoral appointee.
Marianne Callahan, mayoral appointee.
Rebecca Porter, First District.
Mhm.
Kenya Middleton, ex officio.
Ebony Hato, District 4, Secretary.
Marilyn Austin, 6th District.
Michelle O'Loughlin, mayoral appointee, no, member at large.
Jordan Trice, 5th District.
And I'm the chair, Justin McGregor, 7th District. All right, so everyone got the copy of the minutes, either in the email or while you're here today. If you had a chance to look over that. If so, if anyone has any amendments to be made, please bring those forward. If not,
Please feel free to update the names. I could not hear everyone's name. So if you know the individuals who I referenced as an initial and that's not clarified and you think it needs to be further clarified, please let me know.
As Stephen said, if you know anybody's name who needs to be updated. I'm worse with names than his hearing probably was with names, so that's not going to help from me. But seeing none, anyone see one? Give you a moment.
I wasn't here, so I'm not going to make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Okay.
you're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have any changes though first? I see some people are looking at them. I just want to make sure. All right, seeing none, I'll take that motion now.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes as is, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention.
2.
Who?
I think did you abstain
She
too?
said aye, I thought.
Oh.
Oh, you abstained? Okay, sorry.
So two.
Two abstentions, my bad. All right, those minutes are now approved. That brings us to the food section of our meeting, the fiscal year 50 budget discussion. Stephen, would you like to talk about your wall art?
Yes. Okay. So this is a copy of the Excel spreadsheet that was emailed to everyone. I have over the years tried to idiot proof it, but since I can still mess it up, obviously I didn't idiot proof it enough. So if you play with this thing at home, understand the key point is you only put stuff in the red outline boxes. That's because those are the ones that matter. So I gave you the summary from last year. This year, I'm showing you the minimum and the maximums. The calendar 2023 expenses and the unencumbered and available. We put that in there this year because I felt it was important to understand, because I feel like not knowing that, you may get into a situation you're just sort of jamming more money into something that's not expending it anyway. So I'm showing you here calendar 2023. These are the expenses we spent from 1/1/2023 to 12/31/2023. So that's the total expenses we spent in these categories. And then the unencumbered and available, that basically means we don't have a purchase order for it set up, and it's just sort of money that's free floating around in here. There are also POs that aren't represented here, and those are essentially, we'll enter into a purchase order, or we'll create a purchase order, say we're going to fund the subrecipients, and they get $10,000 for the year. We'll set up a PO for them for $10,000, so the money's encumbered, and as we spend down that PO, the PO gets smaller and smaller and smaller, at least in Munis that we use. And when they close it out, if they used up all the funds, great. If they didn't, once we close out the PO, the money's released back into the whatever line that we encumbered it from. So this money is sort of just free floating money available. Now, with both these lines, take this with a grain of salt. Some of these categories are broad, like administration includes several sort of subcategories. Some projects will seem unnecessarily high, like BLDC. This is not salaries. This was BLDC salaries and the capital project at what do we call it? The Clinton Street Square, and I think one other project as well. So all of that falls under BLDC subrecipient. Knowing how much we have available, my recommendation is 0 because they did not spend that much in salary last year. Let's see here. And so I can answer more specific questions about this, but this is sort of quick checking in the budget to see how much we actually spent and how much we had left. Here is the FY49 final budget. This was the mayor's final budget post CDAC recommendations. This should reflect something similar in the the summary. So it should be the same. So what are these black boxes here for? I'm sure you guys bated breath were asking. The reason those are there is to kind of reflect numbers that are difficult to parse out later, but they will be addressed later in the thing. So for example, public infrastructure, I broke it down so you could see how much we spent last year, how much they have available not spent this year, how much the budget was for last year, but the budget for that will be determined under CDBG capital. So that's why I always say, do the red boxes. Now, there's 3 specific tabs. I'll jump over to the PI estimates. So this is so what we have to do now is we have to estimate how much program income we think we're going to make in a year. Program income is almost always, so far is always generated from our home rehab programs, our home purchase programs, where someone has to pay a certain portion back. So this is, we've been doing this for 50 years. So there's a lot of mortgages out there. So as those close down, people sell the properties. I hate to say it this way, but people pass away, their kids get the transfer of title, whatever. These mortgages these liens essentially are paid back. And so what I've done for both for home and CDBG is I've taken the average of the last 3 years. How does that work here? Again, this is behind the scenes stuff that if you just want to keep eating and ignore me, you're totally welcome to, but this is how we kind of get it to work. So what we do with program income is we put them right back into the budget lines that originally created them. Why do we do this? Well, we used to not do this, and it gets confusing because we've had some findings from HUD on tracking our program income a little bit better. If we put it back exactly into the lines that fund it, then at the end of the year, when we actually have to figure out how much program income we actually created, it's very easy. We just go and adjust these lines. So the CDBG one is the home assistance and repairs. That's why that's that 375 minimum. And then the home rehab, same way. That's the 95,000 minimum there. So that reflects the program income. You can add more if you so wish, but as long as you're covering at least the program income in this budget, we're good to go. Going to capital and services, these both basically behave the exact same way. These include projects that people applied for, some of what the departments asked for example, the Parks Department or DPW. Plus, you guys can come up with other capital projects. What's a capital project? Capital project is any sort of physical thing we're creating that lasts a long time. So for example, if you wanted to build a statue in a park, this would be where it is. This will automatically tally and spit out a number on the main page. And I've put the ones, the people, what they've applied for here as well. Now the services line, CDBG services, this again is everybody who applied this year and some who didn't apply, but I put them on here so you could see sort of a reflection of what was applied for last year. So for example, ACA did not apply, BHA did not apply, CARES did not apply. So you can add additional programs if you want, but as you fund these, here's their request. Here was their budget from last year. And so you're going to put in how much you think they should get. Services are capped. So the current cap off of what we estimate we're going to get, do note, we do not have final numbers yet from HUD, is going to be about 323,000. I ask that you put, don't push the cap. We do it every year. And I know this is probably talking to the wind because we do it every year, but I would rather you not push the cap on services. Because if for some reason all the services expend their money and the other projects don't, then at the end of the year when we do the caper and we say we've spent more than we had to, the city has to pay it out of the general fund. We have to pay the difference out of the general fund. And that's something we don't want to do. So remember a couple things here. One is the mayor wants $20,000 minimum service or capital service projects. And number two, the mayor does have some preferential programs. I believe Megan came and spoke about these. I did not flag them this year, so I leave it up to you to determine if you, I think like after hours team program was one, but that should be your notes from the mayor's office presented on how they wanted to fund those this year. So you know that that's kind of their priority goals. ESG services, this is similar. You fill in the red box. I've already put in the one the city's going to claim for HMIS. Now these are two tranches of money. This one is emergency shelter and street outreach. And the one on the bottom is rapid rehousing, homeless and prevention, HMIS. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. All you really need to know is this top one has a cap, 97.2. And the COC did make a recommendation that was a full 97.2. The one on the bottom does not have a cap, but obviously if you're putting 60%, which is the cap up here, that's going to leave you 40% down here. So as long as the number here does not equal this, good. As you can see, the capped line, as similar to the CDBG service line, which is capped, is probably the most competitive. I have updated this with I have received word from the COC committee. They did it via email to make a recommendation for outreach ministries, which unfortunately with Barb's passing, it was just confusion as to where they stood. They've recommended 10,000 and they took the 5,000 off of addiction center of the original recommendation, 5,000 off the addiction center and 5,000 off the YWCA, Southside Manor. So that's how they recommended 10,000. Again, salaries just like everything else. So now I leave it into CDAC's capable hands with all the information you've received since September, the packets, the presentations, the public hearing, everything to now figure out what your recommendation is going to be. You do not have to make final recommendations tonight. We have another meeting in 2 weeks. I've never known us to do recommendations in one night. We could be surprised. I do want to say my little pep talk. You guys represent the citizens of the city. That is literally why you are here. If you think a program deserves to be funded, you need to fight for that program. If you think a program does not need to be funded, let people know. There may need to be a little political I don't mean politic parties, but political back and forth. Maybe diplomatic would be a better term. You may want to say, hey, I don't like this program, but you do. And I like this program, you don't. How about you can do that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, 7 of you have to approve this budget. I turn it over to the chair just as he bit into a delicious, delicious chicken wing.
Mango.
Actually, Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You're welcome. Point of order. just a question here. The mayor's asking us to consider $20,000 allocations or recommendations.
Minimum for service
Minimum.
programs.
Now, what do we do? I mean, obviously I see that a lot of people didn't get that memo. How much flexibility do we have with this?
It's going to be up to you. If you think the mayor may jump back and say, you know what, we wanted to do 20,000, but we're going to do 15 because maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. It's up to you to
Yeah,
make a
okay.
determination.
So
on
it's
that.
not written in stone.
It's written
far
in
as
stone as much
this-
as the mayor said it would be written in stone, and it was in the original application packet.
But his
So,
honor has come a long way in listening to us, so hopefully that will help. Okay. Thank you.
also ESG is not don't worry about the 20,000 cap with
No,
ESG.
no, I'm
ESG is its
talking
own
about
weird
the
thing.
human services
Oh, the
part of it.
CDBG?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is really the main portion that we really struggle with.
I mean, most agencies did ask for 20,000 or more.
Right.
The only one who kind of was low was Urban Link for the Attain Lab.
But
and they're just
again,
right at 20.
but again, what we're talking about is how far our money will go with that equation.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So where do we want to start? Who has any preferences? Deborah, I hear you laughing up at the top. All right. Oh, we're bringing it down now.
Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Is that better? Okay. I can also zoom in. I can scroll and zoom in.
All right, so he has up the human services section. Do we want to start with that? Does anyone have any favorites? Anyone remember their presentations? Anyone remember the mayor's recommendations? Anyone want to say something?
Well,
Deborah's got her hand up.
I'll start it off with Action for Older Persons, phenomenal program, and just, I believe it was countywide with $750,000 in savings. We have members here on the commission that either they personally or relatives utilized it. I was a volunteer back in the day. Very worthwhile project, I think, for the amount of funds asking the assistance and vitality of this program year after year. I'm not keen on doing that, but I believe this is one of those that you get a bang for the buck, and would like to propose that we fund that.
So I'm not sure if you can read it, so I'll read the numbers on either side of that. The fiscal year 49 number for Action for Older Persons was 15,000. Their request for fiscal year 50 is 21,500. What is your recommendation, Deborah? Do you think
Why
we
don't we do 17?
17?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion? Do we have a total of the current requests versus the money that we have?
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This is what we made you do last year.
This is something that we probably
We
should
should
have
have
done
asked.
beforehand,
We did.
but this is why we put Steve on the. Because that's gonna make a difference in what we recommend. 479,000?
So our
versus-
cap is 323,850 and the total request is $479,406.
And what is the percentage of the cap that you do not want us to go above? 80%, 90%, what?
The cap is 15% of
Okay.
your overall program budget. I'm not going to give you a number, just to know that when you push the cap, it puts a lot of stress under the system.
Right.
But I will say this, since I've been doing this, at least at the city of Binghamton, the town union never pushes the cap. They do like 12%. I've never had a situation where we've ended up having to pay back HUD for anything. What's funny is the service agencies have a tendency to underspend much more than you would expect. So
But for reasons of this discussion, we could think maybe 300 as a ballpark figure.
If you so choose, if
Yeah,
you so choose.
I mean,
It's up to you.
just to give my colleagues a frame of reference here. And the last year's requests came to what, Steve? I'm sorry. I should have taken another chicken leg and just shut up.
Basically $301,000. Which means we stayed under that cap.
You know, I'd like to agree with Deb on that it was kind of a standout program. At least for me, I was moved by their presentation. I was moved by some of the experiences that we've had. And 17,000 is certainly respectable. But in light of them kind of being a standout program and the mayor's request for a minimum of 20, I'd like to maybe bump that up to 20 or fully fund.
If I may, again, add my 3 cents here. The problem with doing it this way is that we're going to run out of money very quickly, and then we're going to have programs that aren't going to be. So what we really need to discuss right now is who do we want to fund? How many do we want to fund? And then divide the money that we have among those people. I think that might be a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it. Some of these programs are very, very worthy programs. They've been around for a while. They reach a lot of people. And as our friend Zahara said last time around, a lot of these are bringing people up out of poverty. And I think those are the kinds of things, if we could maybe do our discussion in light of that, then we could go back and have the discussion that we're having right now. I suggest that, please tell me, shut up and eat my chicken legs. It's fine.
I think that we should. I like the idea of having leaving space and thinking ahead of what we want to do, but part of me wants to see prove that we can't do the $20,000 minimum and then be like,
Improve that now. And I think that those of us who have been on the committee long enough can tell him that that's other than, defunding people that rely on us. That's our only choice right now, is defunding people who have relied on this grant. And we have always said, and I'm sorry to be monopolizing, but we've always said that they should find other sources of funding. But in these days, what we have to determine is who are the most critical for the needs of the people of Binghamton right now. So, I wouldn't worry about convincing the mayor, because he's gonna get an argument that he can't refuse, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, it's not feasible unless we kick a lot of people off this list. And I don't think that's fair. I really don't.
oh, I agree.
Okay, then we're
But
the
I just didn't-
recommendation. No, we're the recommendation body. Let's do what if everybody agrees, if you don't agree, that's fine. But if you agree, we are the recommendation body. We are the guys on the ground. We are the ones who need to tell him what's going on.
Right. I agree. And that's the whole point of being on this advisory council.
Exactly.
However, they did ask us to start with a minimum. So I was like, if we start with that, we can at least in good faith, go ahead and go
But
for
here's the
that.
thing, we've got so many other parts of this budget to look at. We have to be efficient. We have 2 meetings to do this in. I mean, if we can do this quickly,
I know, but
But I
I
think we're
think,
gonna-
I think right off the bat, if we do it 2 or 3 times, we're gonna watch our number drop. We're gonna
Okay.
be like, oh, we can't do this, like
Okay.
right off the bat. I mean, we might even already be there, but
yeah.
I'm
I would-
trying to play,
You're being very diplomatic. is what you're doing.
diplomatic.
Yes, you are. You're a good chief.
I'm not trying to be, I'm the other team from the mayor, and I would rather not be accused of being that. I want to come into this I want to take the recommendations of the mayor and what their priorities are, but I also hear city council, and I know what I believe, as having sat on this now for several years, is what's in the best interest of the people of the city of Binghamton too. And I want to make sure that the mayor doesn't think we're just turning a blind eye to anything he suggests or the dollar amounts that he suggests. At the same time, I don't want to appear like we're just steamrolling it. Does that make sense?
It does if you are a very diplomatic person. And
And I
the
am.
problem,
That's the
the problem
problem.
here is that we are a ground level citizen organization. I really don't care what the mayor's office wants or city council wants. What I think is what we think is best right now,
Okay.
as in our role as Community Development Advisory Committee.
Well, there are several on here that I know I want to fund that haven't been funded in the last couple of years. And if we do the $20,000, they'll never be funded.
Exactly.
And I am not okay with that, but I wanted to prove that. But if we don't think we need to prove that, then let's just go forward with.
I think the numbers-
Deborah, you have your hand up.
Quite frankly, that's why I went under to give a cushion, because I know that's where we're going to be ending up.
I know that too, and I just wanted to,
That's fair.
Okay.
I certainly understand where we're coming from, and you know, I think we can benefit from moving forward and talking about some of the programs that you know, stood out other than that one.
Exactly.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we want to leave do we want to be at the 17 or do we want to up it to their goal or their 20,000? Because you had suggested,
I'm happy leaving it at 17. I can also, you know, if we talk about some of the other ones that stood out, you know, well, I have the floor. I heard I was moved by a lot of the community members who came in to talk about the NOMA Community Center.
Mhm.
You know, you can't deny the number of people who came in and took time out of their day. That meant something to me. I've also heard a lot of mentions for vines. Now those, particularly the NOMA Community Center, that's a big ask, $90,000. I'm certainly not advocating for a full fund on that. But I'm just expressing that those ones stood out to me as important to the community as I heard it.
all right, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to read the numbers for NOMA for Deborah because she's way up there in case you can't see them. For NOMA, oh, it just moved. Where'd it go? Oh, for NOMA, okay, it is 15,000 from last year's fiscal budget, and their request this time was 90,000, 581,000. And your other one you mentioned was what? Vines.
Vines. I heard a lot of community.
And Vines
feedback about
last year
Vines.
again was 15,000. Their request this year is 33,000.
This again, but if you noticed with NOMA, I don't know if anybody picked up on but last year and this year, they tout themselves as being volunteer-based. They talk a lot about the volunteers that they have come in. Yet they're asking us for $90,000, which is going to go to salaries mostly. And that is incongruous to me. What they're doing is wonderful, but what they're asking for is totally unrealistic.
Deborah.
Justin, Marianne, in my notes, and we are always looking at that where there are other funding sources. They had current grant applications into the CLE Foundation and United Way as well. So we are not the only funding source possibly for this. And that was one of the things I was trying to madly take notes on, is other funding sources that our applicants coming forward may have access to. And Vines is one of them because they do and have received from the Labor Department. Their executive director was a former employee in the planning and housing, and she is an amazing grant writer. So they have
I got
access to other grant. Doesn't mean we don't fund, but just to let the newer people that they do have other funding.
Thank you.
So I have a,
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them received 15,000 last year. Rebecca.
I would just like to state that previously, before accepting this role, I was on the board for NOMA. I am no longer on the board. However, I would like to just address the salary, a question or comment. There are only two people that are paid at NOMA. One is Brandy and the other is her assistant, who is only paid for 20 hours a week. So a lot of the money that does go to the agency is really provided for the resources that are given out to the community members, aside from those two people that are on salary. And the assistant was only recently added to that salary. So I just wanted to state that.
And I want to be clear, I mean, and I may be mistaken, but when they were asked what the money would be used for, I was pretty sure they said mostly for salaries, which is why I mentioned it that way. It was their statement, not mine.
Yeah, sorry, they don't make that much. And I do remember from last year that, that Brandy, when they presented that, Brandy did state that at the time, because they didn't have an assistant last year.
Right.
She was the only one
Right.
that was being paid
Right,
and everybody else there is volunteer.
right, exactly. Yeah. We probably could have clarified that a little bit better, but still, $90,000 is a lot of money.
All right, so we have both.
Could I make a comment on the NOMA
Yes, ma'am.
numbers? So it looks like the agency budget is 155,581. They're asking us for 90,581, so it's more than half their budget,
Yeah.
correct? And and they're getting money from the American Rescue Plan. That's already secured. It's 20,000. I think they're a valuable asset, but I just think I cannot go along with funding 90,000.
Their ask is 58% of their budget.
Yeah, I think that's too much.
Okay, so we have any suggestions on the amount that we should fund them to? I think everyone seems to be in favor of funding them, just not to the level that they're requesting. Yes?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
for me. I mean, I would say at least 20.
Okay. Any others?
Say at least 20 as well.
Anybody else? 20, 20. I'm seeing lots of head nods. 20, 20, 20. Deborah?
Reserve, I think we need to go under, I'm just worried.
Okay. So, oh,
You're not making fun.
no, you've already put it in there. I wasn't even done moving around the room. Okay.
I have a question before we move on
Yep.
about what's written on the budget here that we're looking at. The spaces with question marks. What are we doing there? Can anybody explain? So park rangers,
Yes, I can explain. I
Thank
didn't
you.
take notes when the Parks Department was talking about, or if the Park
Oh.
Department even talked about park rangers.
They
Oh,
did
Uh,
not.
Same thing with the community policing. I did not take specific notes about that, so it would come out more in any notes you had taken while the police were speaking or parks were speaking about what they needed.
I see, I see. Okay, thank
I
you
don't
for that
remember them even
clarification.
discussing that.
They might not have.
I just wanted to, since we are talking about programs that we think we should fund, I definitely wanted to talk about the park rangers.
Okay.
I think that's definitely an asset for our community. Not only do we have, folks keeping an eye on the local parks, but we also have teens who are able to be employed. And so I think, we should fund them if, we're voting on such.
Do you have a suggestion at which level we should fund that to?
Well,
Last year
so
we
that's
did
where the problem was, right?
$10,247.70.
Yeah, I mean, 10,000 cool, I guess.
Okay.
I don't
Anybody
know how
else?
many youth stat employees, but we'll ask that question later.
Don't forget also, these are not final numbers. These are very adjustable numbers. So as you
Right.
guys, as soon as someone seems to come up with a solid, let's put that up on the board. I'm throwing it up on the board.
Yep.
It's not my recommendation. I'm not saying you got to stick with it. Come back and attack it later. It's up to you, but I'm just trying to get numbers up there. So you
We
guys have something.
gotta start somewhere, so let's start throwing some numbers up on this board. All right, so we have. I should have worn my contacts today. The Binghamton Adult Education out of school youth last year funded 20,000, requested 12,000 rather, requested 20,000 this year. Is that the top line of that section? Yes. No? Yes? Okay,
I would recommend that we just keep it at the 12. Same as they got last year and just see how the numbers start going.
okay. Yes?
I
Anybody?
agree with that.
I said I'm not swayed either way. I'm kind of neutral about that. Yeah. And
Okay.
see how it goes.
All right, let's see how it goes. Binghamton Housing Authority, the summer and after school programs. They did not
Apply.
apply this year.
Correct.
Do we know if they brought that program back? I know that they were trying to.
They have
post-
one going this year.
They do have one
Yes.
going this year?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they were awarded 15,000 for FY 49 is the current program you're running through. So they are running through that. They did have something for T1, which is the first third. So yes, they've already expended funds on that.
Okay. All right. Boys and Girls Club of Binghamton, their after hours team program. We gave them $50,000 last year. They're requesting $50,000 this year, along with their teen center, 20 and 20, and their summer program fee. We gave them 19,975 last year. They're requesting 26,125 this year.
I just
Does-
wanted to say something, sorry. I know that the Boys and Girls Club comes on there every year, and I know that every single year we always give them every penny that they ask for. I'm just wondering, just my thoughts, crazy thoughts. Do we have to always give them that money? Or like, because we always do, they always come every year since I've been on this board. But, I think maybe kind of, I can't make recommendations with you guys, but maybe when you're making them, maybe kind of save that one or some other programs that you might think might need it more. We do need these services for our kids, but they are like every single year. It's like the same program. So just my recommendation, maybe thinking before, you make that. Just my recommendation. I can't really say anything.
I know
vote
I
anything.
wanted to talk about the Boys and Girls Club because I went there when I was a teen and I have very fond memories of attending there. However, when I was looking at their 3 proposals, I'm all for the summer program. It's one of their more, as someone who has 3 kids, I look into summer programs all like starting now, I'm looking at summer programs. I have 3 children, so it's quite expensive. Boys and Girls Club has one of the most affordable programs. So I'm all for funding that program. The Teen Center and the After Hours Teen Program, however, when I was looking at the budget, some of their numbers seemed a little funny. I remember when I went to their after hours teen program, I saw that they have like $6,000 for like their executive directors and financial directors. They're not there at those hours. I could tell you their after hours teen program has like maybe 3 staff and it's not the higher ups. So that was the thing that I was like, I kind of agree with Kenya on that one where even though, yes, I do agree we should fund the summer program, the other ones, maybe not so much.
John?
I'd also like to note with the after hours teen program that, one thing that compels me is going through and calculating, the dollar amount per participant. And
Right.
They have the second highest here. What they're asking for is $1,111 per participant. That's high. That's high for and I'm just talking about the after hours teen program. It's less for the teen center and the summer program, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Here's my thing about that. I think last year this was the program where I think it was a female that came and talked about it. And they talked about going to Yankee Stadium and taking the kids and going to lunch in the city and this and that. Why can't they go to a Rumble Ponies game and give the money back to our community? Our hockey games. I mean, why does it have to be a professional game that is so much money? I mean, I know they're trying to make, I mean, there's kids, like my kids have never been to a Yankee game, you know what I mean? So why do they have to be that? That was the things that she was saying that they did for the kids. And I think that's just unnecessary. I don't know. A lot of money to
The other thing I think we need to do as we look at these is to see what other sources of funding these guys are applying for. Because that's important too. If they rely, and we've said this for years, if they rely on this block grant money all the time, we get them in, we enable them to do this. It's not a good thing.
I
Yeah,
also
they
agree
are-
with Kenya. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Michelle first, then Rebecca. Sorry. I
It
was
is-
looking at her.
That is 100% of their budget is on that program is us, yes.
100%.
It's 100%.
Now, this is just my opinion, but something like the Boys and Girls Club to me has so much, it's a national organization that has, you know, name recognition and stuff. It seems like grants from national organizations would be rolling over for great proposals of activities at a Boys and Girls Club. And if we're 100%, that means they're not even reaching out for grant money. And that is not okay with me. We're, you know, whether it's the Rumble Ponies or the Yankees. I will donate them the tickets to the Rumble Ponies game. I've done it before.
All right, how about if we do this? How about if we decrease that 50,000 request, you know, like we did the others, we're taking it down a little bit and see where the numbers go. So instead of 50,000, you know, could we do 30? Because I truly believe that the mayor's gonna come back because
yeah.
I think every mayor, no matter who it is, strongly wants the Boys and Girls Club programs funded by us. But, so if, you know, just moving numbers around, go to 30 and the teen center go to maybe 15. And then that summer program fee, and that's a jump, you know, keep that at 17, not give them the 26. They want 26. Last year they got 19. I know, give them less than 20 than what they're asking for. Keep it at
To me,
20
that's the program
at
I
a
like.
minimum.
They're from the Boys and Girls Club.
Or
That would be the only
less.
program I would
don't like
fund
that
for the
program.
Boys and Girls Club. I personally don't care if we don't fund the other two, but that summer program, I feel
How
like
many-
is the
Yeah.
one that should be funded.
Does anyone remember from the notes how many kids were in the summer program?
I've got it here. That's just to see if we can move the.
can I add something about the summer program?
Oh, Rebecca, sorry.
No, it's okay. But I just wanted to say, first of all, I agree with Kenya and the other woman who spoke and said that, you know, we should kind of go down on those budgets. However, for the summer program, the one thing that I really like is that they do sponsorships for
Yeah.
children. So for instance, if you have 2 children, they may have you pay for one and then you can apply for a sponsorship. And based on the need and the sponsorships that they receive, another child in that household may get full funding for that summer program. So I do agree with funding as much as possible for the summer program. And for the other 2 programs, maybe where they're at now, potentially in the red boxes or a little bit lower so that they could attempt to apply for other funding from different avenues to also give each different agency that applied a chance to receive some of this budget.
Yep.
All right, that was just my opinion.
So you think we should leave it at least minimum of 20? Okay.
Justin, to answer your question, it states on the application form, the summer program may serve up to 55.
55 kids. That doesn't seem like a lot for the summer, but it's a lot.
That is a lot when they don't have a
lot
lot
of
of
children.
staff.
Here. 55. Yeah.
My battery died, so my notes are now MIA.
Steve, can I ask you a question? If we decided to fund, as my colleague from the first ward has suggested, can we also put a caveat that maybe they increase that enrollment number?
Were you talking about for the summer program fee?
Yeah.
My understanding is that's the actual fee itself that's being covered. So in
Right, but if we
essence, you
give
would
them
be
more money,
saying
if we give them more money, isn't there more money for
it would be for additional kids.
additional fees?
It should be. It should, I
So
mean, that
if
would
we
be my
do that, we
understanding of it.
increase the number of children, which is what we want to do, right?
But do their facilities allow them to go beyond?
I know at least with my three kids, a lot of after-school programs and childcare places have had issues since COVID because they have to have a certain staffing ratio and there's not that many applicants because it's normally a minimum wage type of a job. No one really wants to do it. I know that's one hurdle that I've seen in the after-school sector.
We at least ask
I
them.
can,
Is that something, or is it too late in the process? Mr. Carson?
Sorry, I was actually seeing if HUD had actually awarded us our entitlement. What was the question again?
Ask them if with additional funding, they could see their way clear to do more enrollments.
I can certainly ask them. I'm gonna guess that the 26,125 that they're requesting reflects an expectation of getting additional clients. That would be my guess. But I can certainly, so you're thinking of funding them above the 26,125?
Asking that simple question, I mean, because one of the things they talked about was their heartbreak at turning kids away. You know, so I mean, obviously logic would assume that if you have more money, maybe you have more resource to do more things.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's, I mean, I don't remember what the packet says, but the 26,125 is how much more? It's roughly 6,150 more than the previous year. So the amount of kids they were expecting to cover unless the program fees jumped up tremendously. Does anyone know if they did?
yeah, see, and that would be maybe good to know.
That's what I don't know. So I can ask them for clarification. Let me see.
Thank you.
Ask ENG clarification on numbers of summer program. Sure, I'll ask them.
Deborah. Thank you.
Steve, I remember when Lieutenant Flanders gave a presentation from the police department. Wasn't there something that because of COVID or staffing that they did not have the police component for the teen night and that those funds were not expended? Do you remember anything of that?
I don't have, I don't recall anything that specifically. I do know that the only thing I know that talks about that is the police were seeking to use the police overtime funding for the police to go to the Boys and Girls Club and interact with the teens. The problem is they weren't able to sort of generate any demographic report from that. And I'm not sure why, but they just couldn't do it. So we told them it's easier to use it for an area effect thing as opposed to it's essentially a service program they would be doing at that point. And all these programs require reporting and demographics, and the police department simply couldn't get the demographics for that. That's the only thing I know about the police at the Boys and Girls Club.
All right.
So the next one down, the Broome County Urban League, the Attain Technology, that's a huge jump in what they got last year and what they're requesting this year. What does everybody feel about that?
if I could speak on Urban League, to fully disclose, I was an employee there a few years back. And I was the director of the Youth and Family Services Department. So I oversaw the after school and summer program. I did take training classes at the Attain Lab. One thing that I would say is both of these programs do offer a lot of support for community members, especially people who are low and no income, to be able to come in and receive services, whether it's to benefit them in a professional setting, utilizing the Attain Lab for parents or for their children in the after school and summer program. My thoughts is like the Binghamton Boys and Girls Club summer program. If it were up to me, I would advise 20,000 at least for the after school and summer program. And for the Attain Lab, I know typically just based on what they're asking and what they received last year, it looks like about half of what they requested. And I do know that CDBG may not be the only people they're seeking for funding, so I would vouch to at least give them half of what they're asking for that program, if I'm allowed to speak on that, because I was an employee previously.
No, thank you. I see that they are, another funding resource of that is, the SUNY Research Foundation. They're secured, they got 1,029,850. So they got 93% of their budget from SUNY Research Foundation. So that 19,960 is just 1.8% of their budget. Compared to some of the other programs, it's 100% of their budget from us.
You said the Attain is?
Yeah.
So if it's 100%, do we want to fund?
I'm sorry, what?
If it's 100%, are you saying not to fund it to?
No, I'm just saying it's remarkable that what this number, this 19,000 is 1.8% of their budget.
Oh, 1.8%.
1.8% of their budget. The majority of their funding is coming from SUNY Research Foundation.
Right, okay. I transposed that. I thought she said 98% of their funding. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are we comfortable with the numbers in that range? Deborah?
Would agree. I initially had a concern because there was funding for the Attain Lab when it was in Center City. I've also taken classes there. They're great. To round it up, how about we just do the 20 on this one?
On the Attain Technology Center?
Right.
Okay,
But I do expect us to come back under.
okay. All right, as we keep going down the list. CARES did not apply this year. Catholic Charities of Broome County.
I would like to go on record and state that I work for Catholic Charities. And even though it's not this sector that I work for, I believe I have to
Recuse, abstain.
recuse, okay, recuse, abstain from this discussion.
Thank you.
I see that there was communication from Rebecca Rathma regarding this. Did
our
everybody
email.
see? Did everybody get that? And then Steve's comment about if we do not fund them.
So if you'll notice here, Catholic Charities of Broome County, TTLP using CDBG funding, but also they applied for the exact same program with emergency shelter. So, or the ESG funding. So here's how it works. TTLP is not an emergency shelter. They are what's considered a transitional shelter. It's in the name, transitional shelter. Emergency shelters have a specific I'd say lifespan, a duration you're able to spend the time there, and the turnover and so on. Typically, I think it's, oh geez, this is where I wish, where's, the other Rebecca. But I think it's like 3 weeks or something like that. People stay at TTLP for like 18 months. But because of the change, they were eligible under emergency shelters before, but due to the change of ESG, the only way they can continue to get emergency shelter funding or through ESG is if they keep getting funding through ESG. The year they don't get any ESG funding, that means from that point on, they are no longer eligible for any ESG funding from the city of Binghamton, because they were grandfathered in, but if they're no longer doing it, then they're no longer grandfathered in. So I'm not sure why they applied for both. But they did. They applied for both ESG and CDBG funding. That program is absolutely eligible under CDBG as a service program, but it's thus exposed to the cap, as well as being in what I would say, to be realistic, a much more competitive pool of money. So that's that situation. Yes, Rebecca gave her comments on that. I hope everybody got a copy and got a chance to read that. So that is up to this body to decide on that.
I'll just add, going along with the theme for TTLP, their ask is for $5,824 per participant. Was my math on that. That being the most expensive one per participant.
Doesn't it seem to be that the TTLP program is more of an emergency? I mean, it's kids that are in crisis. Emergently, correct?
So I can clarify a little bit about this. To get into TTLP, you have to apply. It can take weeks or even months to go through the application process to be awarded. They're not really, it's not like a homeless teenager on the street's going to be able to walk into Catholic Charities and get into the TTLP. They'll probably have to go to a shelter program first and apply for application into TTLP. So it's not, there's really no quickness to it. You have to be, I mean, the application packet's like literally like that thick. And you have to go before a board and a committee to get it reviewed and everything like that. So it's not an emergency shelter. It qualified an emergency shelter in the previous definitions of emergency shelter that HUD had with the ESG funding, but that has since changed.
I would like to elaborate and maybe give some clarity on this program as opposed to the emergency program. I was actually part of the TTLP when I was a youth. I was in foster care and I was in the process of aging out, and I was in college and I didn't have anywhere to go. So Catholic Charities, the TTLP program took me in, they gave me housing. They gave me like independent living classes, taught me how to cook, taught me how to budget and things like that. So it kind of like sets the youth up for success in the future and how to be a successful adult, as opposed to like their emergency program. That's a kid in crisis. That's like a kid that's been tossed out on the streets by his family and is sofa surfing. That TTLP program, it is a bunch of paperwork. It's like a couple year long waiting list. It's a process to get into that program.
Thank you.
If I may, one of the things we have to remember is that our government is very, very fond of doing quick fixes, which don't work. And the TTLP program is probably more like a lot of other programs should be. It invests both the time and the money in someone that I would love to see their success rates. I bet they're huge because of what they do. So when we look at this, I would ask us to look at what they actually do and not look at the algorithmic things that we usually look at when we do grant applications, because there is a certain sort of leeway here that we have to remember, and we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I think it's also worth noting though that the agency budget for Catholic Charities is over $22 million. This is a drop in the bucket for them, although specifically with this particular pool of money, that can go a long way in terms of funding other things. Certainly it sounds like a fantastic program, and we can consider it even out of the other fund, but I think I'm a little uncomfortable considering it with this. given those factors.
So is our consensus to tiptoe around them for now and move forward?
I would like to suggest that we put a number in the box just because we want to keep them, just because they're grandfathered in, I would
Yeah.
like them to stay in.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be aware, the ESG funding is the grandfathered in funding.
Okay. Sorry, I was, yep, mistaken. My bad.
I was at the food table when that part was going on, so I was on the same page as you with this one. Okay, so we're gonna tiptoe around that one. The next,
More questions. So Steve, you're saying essentially that they don't even need to apply right here then?
No, every agency still need to apply. It's just the ESG funding, I'll go over this. If they are not awarded money, ESG money in a year, they can no longer apply for ESG money in the future. So it's a they're grandfathered into the program because they've been receiving ESG money forever.
Okay.
And or at least since the beginning of the ESG program, but due to changes, basically HUD changed the nature of the ESG program. Part of it was the CAT thing. So one of those changes was to encourage people to go into housing. That was, they call it housing first and so on. So they're like, hey, make sure you're at least spending 40% on your homelessness prevention, rapid housing, get people into units. But we still want to fund shelters and street outreach, yay, but you got a cap on it. But HUD, for whatever infinite wisdom HUD has said that transitional programs no longer qualify as an emergency shelter. For whatever reasons, good or bad, that's just HUD's determination. So.
Okay. So what I'm really trying to figure out is, would it be better for us to, put money in the budget on the ESG line and not on the CDBG line?
I can't qualify or make a recommendation for you guys. It's unfortunate. I just have to explain that if you don't fund them in ESG, they will not be able to get ESG funding in the future. Admittedly, if you gave them $1 of ESG funding, I guess in theory, they're still getting ESG money, but that's not a recommendation to do that one way or the other. It's just to let you
100%.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Following.
I have to be very neutral on any of this.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused. So can they get money both ways? Can they get
Currently,
ESG
yes.
and the CBG?
They always could get CDBG money. They will always be able to apply for CDBG money. They previously have gotten ESG money. If they don't get any ESG money, say this year or next year, whatever point where they don't get ESG money, they're no longer grandfathered in and they can no longer even apply for ESG
Yeah,
funding.
I get that, but can we say tonight, yes, you can get ESG money and also in addition get,
Yes,
okay.
you can give them both ESG and CDBG money.
Okay,
Correct.
that's all
If
I
you so
wanted to
wish.
know in my head. Okay.
So would another consideration be whether or not it is more important to fund them for the ESG funding rather than the human services part, because they might be able to find money for the human services part somewhere else because they have the outreach that they have.
Right, that's what
And
I'm trying to
is the
figure out.
pool of money in the human services portion a little more tenuous than the ESG funding, which is maybe a little bit easier to allocate? So I think that might be the way we should look at it.
Agree.
Yeah.
so we're gonna tiptoe around that because I think it should be an ESG. I think that's what we were just. Tiptoe, sorry. Tiptoe around it. That means Deborah, sorry.
Justin, what is last year's funding for that, please?
For which one? Catholic Charities?
The teen transitional program?
We're not awarded any CDBG funding last year. However, ESG wise, TTLP did receive $30,311, or were awarded $30,311.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we already penciled in money for the park rangers. Community policing. We didn't give them funding last year. They did not, well, I don't remember the community policing this time being discussed in any depth during their presentation. Deborah, I know you're usually,
Just going back, I was able to find, if I'm reading their, uniform, from the parks, their interview papers they gave
right,
us, it was 4 park rangers, 10,200, and that was up 200 from their ask in 2021. So that was a base there. Usually community policing, is a part of that, but it's on top of that, and they have the bike and the walkers, quality of life.
The community policing unit that we are talking about now, I think if what I heard you say is that the park rangers and community policing are this, is that what you just said?
They're a bit different. And
They're very different.
And although, yes, it would be great to have it for teens, certain parks.
No.
need to-
Community policing are police officers who are using their off hours
Absolutely, I
and
was trying-
overtime to walk our streets and get to know our people. It's a very, very important program. My only
There's a
question is,
distinction.
Yeah,
I
that's the
wasn't
distinction.
finished. Because the park rangers, those are, they do not have the policing powers that a police officer has.
Mhm.
And sometimes at Columbus Park, for example, we've had an issue. So it may not be a teen hire at that, but the community
community
policing,
policing.
which Marianne was describing, which I was not mixing up, is separate and distinct, and that's through the police department. Just
But I
a
know that
reminder.
the mayor got money for the community policing unit. Do we know how much he got, and does he need anything from us?
I
Or
don't have,
does the city need anything?
I don't have
not
any
him?
information on that, but I can't ask the
Yeah, I
mayor's
think
office for
that would need to be clarified.
So ask the mayor's office.
Because I know that at the neighborhood watch meetings, we've been talking about the expansion of that community policing
Money,
program, which is fantastic.
community policing. Okay.
Thanks for the clarification, Deb.
so I say we move past that till we get an answer from
Yeah.
the mayor's office on whether they found other funding for that. Next up, Fairview Recovery, the opioid case manager, $55,000 last year, and there's a question mark, Stephen? Wanna-
They did not put an application
Oh,
for
they did
this
not.
year.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to speak for them, but it's entirely possible they didn't think they needed to. I know that sounds weird, but they have been granted funding essentially for the last several years. They were invited, they were notified of it and everything like that. So I can't explain why they didn't put any application in. It just was never put in.
I would like to state for the record that I work at Fairview Recovery Services. However, I would like to speak on the services if I can. Am I able to, if I work there?
These are extra crispy wings, sorry. I don't think we mind hearing why or what you know about it. However, if we were to vote and add money on it, I would ask that you recuse yourself from that.
Absolutely.
Okay, then go forward.
Okay, so there are not enough case managers right now at Fairview. They are in desperate need of case managers. So they may not have asked because they don't have bodies to put in those positions at this time. However, with that being said, if they were to ask, the money that is being requested, and I am an employee that is paid with CDBG money, would go to great use. Because there are many people in our community that either suffer with opioid addiction know someone who does or has been affected by it in some way. And there is a great need for case managers. So I would just plea with anyone who would ever have the opportunity to fund a program like them to do so, because they are essentially changing lives and giving people the power of dignity back with the programs that they serve. And I know day in and day out, the case managers that do come through are very overworked and their caseloads are extremely large because there's such short staffing. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. All right, so they didn't request money. We did give them a significant amount of money last year. Is this an instance where we want to continue to fund them, or should we put them on the back burner, and if we have some money left over, go forward with them then?
I would even go farther and say that we should only consider applications that we have received. I
Okay.
mean, they had a choice. They knew that the applications were out there. They did not apply.
Okay,
I mean, that would take us 8 weeks to do that kind of stuff.
all right. Very good. Anybody else?
I agree with Mary Ann. I agree.
Do I agree as well.
Okay. Then 0. So next up, the Literacy Volunteers of Broome Tioga Adult Literacy Education. We did not fund them last year. They requested $20,000 this year. Steven's gonna. Oh, sorry, I dropped down a line. I told you I don't have my glasses on.
Anyone else have notes for them? I think one of the meetings that I attended, I noted that they had failed to appear.
Yeah, they failed to
Did
appear,
they
the one
show up-
I remember. Isn't that
Did
the
they
group
show
that
up
failed?
again?
Ew.
Correct. Literacy Volunteers was supposed to show up at the November 29th meeting and they did not. That was the same meeting where Outreach Ministries also did not show up.
Yeah, and then they didn't show in December.
Wait, Outreach Ministries or Literacy Volunteers?
Oh, literacy.
Yeah, I don't think they rescheduled or anything.
Nope.
Outreach eventually showed up, right?
Yeah,
Outreach
they-
Ministries,
Somebody
they
came,
did
what, did they show up or
Yeah.
was it during the,
at the last meeting.
at the community
Yeah.
thing? The,
So at least we had the opportunity to question and answer this, without them showing up here. I mean, it's almost akin to not applying or, we didn't have the opportunity to examine their program.
You
Yes.
know, I think we have a problem of staff turnover. I think, a lot of knowledge is not transferring through these organizations about what the proper process and channels are.
yeah,
And so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of this fluctuation and just like all over the place, because this is,
a bit of a brain drain from some
Yeah,
of these organizations.
it is.
Deborah.
Justin, based upon past presentations, it appeared to be a very worthy organization. I've never supported the full funding of that
Right.
because there were some other funding sources, but just to have people have the opportunity to do a job application, to go forward with the GED. And I think if I remember correctly, it's this very odd age group. Is it the 19 to 21? They don't seem to fall into other programming. So that's why the funding for this particular was key. Marianne, do you remember that in past, the
Was that this
director
one?
was talking about that?
Binghamton Adult Education, we think is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the top one that we gave $12,000 to.
Sorry.
It's all
Can't
right.
see.
That's okay. Yes. Say what?
Is it the Achieve program? There's an age, it's minors. Which would have been one of our first ones.
A little bit more visible.
It doesn't matter.
So, but we think what you're discussing, Deborah, is the one that is the top one, the Binghamton Adult Education, when you said was in that age bracket, that's the one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what she was just discussing. I don't remember, and I can't pull up their thing.
Does anyone
They have
know
their notes?
what literacy? I don't remember them.
I do have the notes.
And
Anyone have their literacy packet?
Yeah,
yes, I have the literacy packet. What's your question?
What their certain
clientele is, yeah.
demographics are? Or clientele, thank you.
Well, it's 100 people, they estimate. And well, many, many years ago, I did do volunteering for literacy for this group, but many years ago. It's the ages vary greatly from, 21 to 70.
Oh,
It's a huge range of people for adult literacy.
okay.
Steve, just something randomly Eileen just pointed out. We didn't see Achieve on there as one of the agencies. Okay.
It's at the
thank
top.
you, Thank you.
I have the
Oh,
things
we were at
frozen
the
so
top.
you can scroll
Yeah,
up.
okay.
I
yeah,
asked if we were at the top earlier.
Oh, yeah, so we didn't talk
weren't.
about it. That's what.
And it's a literacy program.
Is there anything else above that? No, 4, 5, okay.
It's their summer. It's their camp.
All right, so
Yeah, so it's their summer camp.
Well, I think it's a worthy program. I mean, can we give them something? And then again, this is fluid, so we
So
can
there were-
move the numbers around.
they're requesting $40,000. They received nothing last year and they didn't show up for their stuff. But we have a former volunteer and Michelle, do you have a recommendation?
I mean, let's see, what did they ask?
40.
40. No, I mean, we want to keep it less, I mean, the others were, 20 is our cap. They didn't show up, I don't know, 10?
Technically, according to the applications, 20 is the minimum. That was the way the mayor had me do the application. So
Oh.
you do not have to cap at 20. You can award more than 20. And as far as I know, the mayor is fully supportive of that because that was in the original applications that the floor is 20 now, not the cap.
Okay, sorry.
But that's not anything based in any actual federal regulations. at
Nope,
this point.
nope. I think the mayor's goal for that, and I really shouldn't speak for the mayor, but my understanding is to have fewer projects, more money for fewer projects kind of thing. I think that was the goal for that.
Okay.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but would that also reduce administrative costs and the overhead of?
Yes.
So we might be saving money by having that $20,000 floor.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
So your suggestion was $10,000 for the literacy? Do we want to pencil in 10?
I'd like to circle back to it.
We'll circle back. This is just,
Yeah.
Because I have questions about, where do they offer the services? It says the City of Binghamton, but this is also.
They operate out of
Broome,
the
Tioga.
library?
And what percentage of the Broome, Tioga literacy are city residents,
Right. Yeah, they should have showed up to explain.
Yes, exactly. All right,
Let's circle back.
we'll circle back, but we're going to circle back up to the top because we missed the first one or three, I don't know, one, Achieve, their summer rec program. So you were asking about that program where it was in the list, so
Comment came up, but my understanding that it's for minors with disabilities. It allows them to maintain a learning schedule throughout the year, which I think is very, very. And they're asking for 20,000.
so last year we, for Deborah, so because she can't see it, 10,000 for fiscal year 49. They're requesting 20,000 for fiscal year 50. And your suggestion was what?
Mayor, 20,000.
20,000. Do we have any other Deborah?
I would like to concur with that recommendation. One, because it is a unique program and it also provides the teens as they're starting to age out an opportunity to be in a peer leadership and they have a small stipend. It doesn't mean they're still not campers, but they are learning, responsibility and leadership. And I just think it's a unique program. And past, like at our public hearing, there was a mother, and I still remember, an impassioned discussion about what it meant to her child to be able to go to that.
All right, very good. Okay, so we penciled them in as 20. Let's scroll back down to where we were. Up next, the Mothers and Babies Perinatal Network, PAL Family Resource Center. Last year for fiscal year 49, we awarded 15,000. They're requesting 20,000 this year. Any discussion? Rebecca? I'm seeing the nodding.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm all about the PAL Center. When I first moved to Binghamton, I didn't have any friends and I took my children there. Actually, I was pregnant with my youngest, but I created friendships there amongst women. I took parenting classes while I was there, which in turn gave me employment opportunities to become a preschool teacher initially. And the things that they do there, they offer services for diapers, they offer wipes, they offer clothing for children up to 5 years old. And I've just seen a lot of connection. I've been taught good recipes there from Cornell Cooperative Extension when they would come in. And I still have connections with some of those mothers and employees that worked there, even though I haven't been there in, say, 10 years. So I would say give them what they're asking for.
And what they're asking for.
I would like to piggyback on what Rebecca said, and yeah, I have amazing experiences from the PAL Center. My oldest child had a speech delay and we thought it might have been like a social thing, like he was shy and didn't want to speak in front of adults, but he would speak in front of other children. So we went there, we had multiple sessions there. While I was there, I saw that they do the free meals, the free clothing. They also do provide supervised visitation for parents that are trying to get the custody back of their children. I 100% agree that we should give them what they're asking for because I know it'll go right back into the community.
Okay. So PAL, they're saying put in the 20.
I agree.
And the next one up is Triple Cities Makerspace. We did not fund them last year. They're requesting $30,000 this year. This is my chance to speak now. I took their tour. The last 2 years, I've gone there. I actually volunteered with them for some time out at Speedy Fest when they took their trailer out for people to see what they do. It is phenomenal to see people's interactions with the trailer and to go into that place when you see people of so many different walks of life working on machines and doing things in that facility that I just, I come from a family with means, and I don't think I even had the opportunity to do some of the stuff they did. some of it's my own limits that I put on myself, or I'm not that creative or whatever it may be. But to see people that they're working with go in there and basically make things and start things and do little businesses on the sides and stuff, and just have confidence, and the smiles that they go as they're showing off the stuff they're making, that is something that you cannot just hand out. That's something people have got to learn and experience, and it changes their lives. And in that section of the city of Binghamton, where opportunities are few and far between, that is something where I think that many people, they have this traveling unit and they go to the schools in the city of Binghamton and around Binghamton, and just take it to them, take it to their classroom. It's like they have a trailer that's a moving classroom that will take it right to your community center or whatever. Liberty Street, when I was city councilman, we had an event with then city councilman Comrade Taylor, and it was right in the beginning when they were first opening up, and they were, at least I first became aware of them, and they had their little trailer, and they were so proud of this new trailer because they'd just gotten a bigger one or whatever, and they pulled it up on Liberty Street, and they were trying to show people, hey, this is right down the street. You can come and be a part of this, and we can make your dreams reality. And that is just something that's, I think, is something that we should fund in the city of Binghamton. Opportunities are not always around every corner in this city anymore. And if somebody can make an opportunity happen for somebody, take their dreams and make it something, I think it's something that we should be thinking about.
I'll second that. I went there last year and I was impressed. And it needs work,
Oh, yeah.
but our kids should learn trades.
Yep.
And they even do like music, I think.
They do all
Everything
kinds of
down
stuff,
there. Like,
everything.
if you have a interest. And I think what he said to me is they're looking to, because it's like a monthly fee.
Yeah.
So that's what they're trying to do, is get maybe 40 more people in for that. That's a lot.
I
this
think
year.
they were trying to do
So
like
it's gonna be more than
scholarships.
40.
I think they were
It's
trying to do like
scholarships.
scholarships
Yeah,
for the
well, it's the
membership.
pay
And
for
I'm
them to
not
come every month. It's
suggesting
not,
we go
you
the
know.
full 30. I think we
Yeah.
should ease them into it, but I think we should definitely fund them.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
did you
I
end
think
up going over there or no?
I ran out of time.
Yeah.
Before
it's-
today's meeting.
Like, I took John there and he was like, oh my gosh, I never even knew this was here.
I would go back with anybody anytime if you want to go. If-
I'll hold you to that. Because
Okay,
I do
I-
still want to go. I
I
just
will
ran
go.
out of time before today's meeting.
Yeah.
When I was doing programming with Brandy at NOMA through Lord's Aces program, we had the bus come to one of our events. Phenomenal,
Mhm.
phenomenal. The amount of opportunity to creatively express. For me, there's no price tag for that. If we can provide the opportunity for people to utilize that creative expression within themselves, there is healing in there. There is resilient building in there. There is empowerment in there.
Potential
And
careers in there.
That, exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And I would say put the whole 30,000 in for myself.
I'm sorry. The only thing I was thinking of in this application that they're saying 35 people. It's a monthly membership. So that's a lot of money for 35 people.
Well, that's why I said, let's not fund it all the way, but
Yeah.
let's get them in the door. I just feel like it's an opportunity. If we can get some scholarships for some kids or some adults in center and northern city, it's more people that have some glimmer of opportunity to make something.
So how much do you think we should fund it?
I was gonna go and start them off with 10. That's what I suggested last year.
You gotta pay it's 12 months in a year. I mean, 35 people.
Your mic.
I thought it was $35, but it's $50. Comes out to $20. So I would.
Let's give them the 20 then.
20. Yeah, at least.
I see head shaking. I said yes.
about how it gives out scholarships, like you said, which is great to do. And he goes, we don't just take out, and we need people that they need to be here every month. That understanding, you can't just get it and not come.
Right.
So was kind of good, because the three of them that were there said to me, yeah, we don't just say, here, you got this, you can come whenever you want. They have to be there all and use it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. And the last one on this list, number 24, and this was discussed earlier, is Vines Grow Binghamton. Fiscal 49, $15,000. Their request for fiscal year 50 is 33,000. I think we all enjoy the Vines presentation when they came in. And do we have any discussion on Vines?
I personally love vines. I'll start off. They've helped me personally with my own garden. I've called them and, hey, what's going on with my strawberries? I don't know what's going on. And the one girl has come out to my house. I can't think of her name. No, not Amelia. It's a black lady. I'm spacing on it right now. It's
Zuka.
yes, Tezuka, yes. You know exactly who I was talking about because I'm spacing on how to pronounce her name. But yes, she's come out, she's helped me. I remember even last year they did the free plant giveaway and all of my neighbors went and attended it. We all had a huge, beautiful garden along Mary Street. We were all swapping and bartering. It was a great sense of community. I know they had looked into turning one of the abandoned lots on my street into a community garden, but they ended up using a site on News Street, I believe, for that. Regardless, I think Vines is a great program. My one child has food allergies, and Christine, who I don't think works there anymore, she gave me a bunch of tips and tricks on helping with my child's food allergies and how to navigate around it. She put me onto nutritional yeast and all these other things that like I would have never even thought of. I think Vines is a great program and we should fund it as much as we possibly can within reason. Obviously, I know we have reservations and stuff, but it's a great program and they really truly give back to the community.
I agree with that. They have come and helped me do a garden in the backyard, provided me with the soil that fed my family every summer for the last 4 or 5 years. And the work they do in the community, they feed people who have food insecurities. I say give them what they're asking for because it's to benefit the families and the communities that we serve.
Deb, did I see your hand?
Yes, please. Steve, is it possible to do a subtotal as to where we are right now?
It's 234,000. And it's 10.8%. And remember, the cap is 15%. So currently, without any funding for Vines so far, you guys have recommended 234,000.
Just
So
like
that
Well,
means
we're
we're
being
doing really good then,
cheapskates so
right?
far.
So
There are things we've.
We'll put Vines in.
Yeah,
at
there is
20,000.
stuff we said we would
I have a comment.
skirt back to.
Okay, are we going with 20,000 on Grow for Vines?
Just to try it, just to see where our numbers are. Because it looks like we're being cheapskates right now. If we're,
We're being conservative. I like it.
what's that?
I said we're being conservative. I like
Yes,
it.
we are.
But, I would suggest that we go the full 33 with Vines just because the bulk of that money is actually going to be going to youth.
Mhm.
They pay the youth salaries with this. So, I would advocate for the full 33. I have an additional question. Are we doing ESG also tonight? Just because we're creeping a little bit and I was wondering if
Yeah.
we could
Speed it up.
just
Yeah.
a tiny.
Okay.
It's up to you guys if you think you
I
can do it.
agree. I gotta work tonight. I'm with you. on
Okay.
that.
It is currently 2 minutes to 8. 33.
What's that?
with
the ones
that we've gone around?
Add those in, add the ones we've gone around.
Deborah, sorry.
Honestly, I can't do 33 on that one. And Vines is in my front yard, only because of the other grants, through
They are well.
Department of Labor, because that was one of the things they talked about last time. Can we do it 20? If we're going to be, and then go back to AOP and bring that up to 20. I'd like to give some money to the other programs. And although we're at 10% without any funding to Vines, Steve said we needed to be under that cap. So we still have a work back around to a few other programs that we put zero money toward.
We are currently at $267,000. We said we wanted to keep it around $300,000, so we have $33,000 to work with still, with ones we're going back to.
Which are?
Scroll back. We wanted to go back to, where'd it go? What were we going back to? The teen center, wasn't it?
It was Catholic Charities and the community policing, I believe we were going to go
Catholic
back.
Charities, we left blank.
And the community policing, I believe we were waiting to hear back from the mayor's
Yeah.
office.
Yeah,
Okay.
on whether they've got funding for that or not.
I think Catholic Charities, we were keeping it open for.
And then the
ESP too.
opioid, oh, they didn't respond this time.
They didn't do an application, so we said we weren't gonna fund them because they didn't apply.
Didn't have the officers, they were 20.
If we change our mind on that.
They're
So
still
we
Well,
like,
if they didn't apply, we
It's
don't
been a
fund
problem
because
filling
that sets a
grants,
precedent.
which is
Yeah.
So we can't do that.
Okay.
Why don't we leave it until we get the feedback and then
Yeah.
look at it next week?
So move on to the ESG, or do we just,
I would suggest
Uh,
that, we leave our discussion in this particular area until we get some of the answers that we've asked the questions for. And we can look at this next week very quickly. We could wrap this up. If we go to ESG now, then we'll be a little bit ahead of the program and maybe get out of here by 8:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Leave the 33 or drop the 33 on the fines. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I don't want anyone to assume that we're leaving it for one way or the other.
I agree with Deb.
All the way to 20?
I don't think we should give the full funding at this time, not till we go around and look at some of the other. I think we should keep it at 20.
Okay. Yeah, we're not
Right.
stuck in any of these. We can go back to them.
And that's 5,000 more than our budget projections from last year.
Yeah, it's $5,000 more than we awarded last year. All right, ESG. We have, oh boy.
All right, so I'll explain a little bit on this. Similar to the other one, this is the amount they requested. The total amount they requested is not seen because it's not summing up for me. The COC made a recommendation to do salaries only. So here's a list of the salaries they recommended. Here is their funding from last year or the current year. Here is their actual recommendation. This has been updated with the new outreach ministries taken into account. And the entire pool here is going to be only for salaries. Fin is actually more than they requested, just because they couldn't put any more money into the upper category. But the COC recommended the extra money to go into the client, the literal client funding, like the amount of money going to the clients directly.
Thank you. All
So
right.
so Steve, if we go with what COC recommended, what's that number? If we leave it just the way it is?
Yeah, you're done. So yeah, that's if you plug in the COC numbers, that's what it comes out to. It's a total of 97.2, which is the cap on the upper section, and then it's literally just exactly what COC recommended.
Does anyone have any concerns about the COC analysis?
about their analysis, John?
Yeah,
How they,
I'd
how
like-
they, how they arrive at their numbers?
Yeah, I would be curious to hear from other people if they have more experience one way or the other about the way that COC comes to their numbers and how they've applied them here.
Traditionally, the COC is made up of people who understand the sector very well. And they have been able to give us extremely good reasonings for why they come up with their numbers. However, since quite honestly, they lost Rebecca Rathmel, their communication with us has been lacking. So we've got to wonder if the process is still the same as it used to be, and it's just a lack of communication skills. I think that would be something that would be interesting to look into, because they are people made up of people that understand the sector.
Yeah,
I can clarify a little bit because I
Okay.
was there for the meetings. So there's a committee within the COC called the NOFA Committee, the Notice of Funding Applications. That's the committee, and I'm on that committee, who makes determination on, so the COC gets money as well from HUD to give to homeless agencies. So the NOFA committee's point is to create applications very similar to this for agencies to apply for. As part of that, and as part of being part of the COC and our ESG requirements, the COC, we are required to seek the COC's guidance on recommendations on ESG and literally other homeless projects, but we very rarely get any other CDBG homeless projects. So in this specific case, members of the NOFA committee who wanted to be in this subcommittee for recommendations of ESG were drawn. You could not be a member who was applying, so you couldn't be an agency that was applying for funds, obviously. And you had to be on the NOFA committee. So it ended up being the three people, Debbie, and I can't remember the other two. I just remember Debbie Hulse was one of them. All of them, I think, are from agencies that are literally not in this county.
Right.
So they're all homeless agencies not in this county who reviewed the applications, just like you guys are doing, and made these recommendations that we have here now.
Okay. Exactly what Marianne was saying. I mean, I do recognize them to be knowledgeable people in this area. So I guess I would kind of, what I was looking for, is there anyone who has information that would suggest that their knowledge is faulty and that we shouldn't defer to them a little bit?
There probably is, and that person's not here tonight.
Certainly. I mean, I did read her email, her message to us, and she did have some insight, specifically with ADBC and TTLP.
I do believe that. We need her opinion on that.
Make her feel welcome right away.
Deborah, yes, no, any
Yes.
suggestions?
Just for John's clarification, we've had presentations before by the COC, and they have the knowledge and expertise, boots on the ground compared to us. The only one that I'm still concerned about is the TTLP. And that is serving 16 to 20-year-olds, unique program within a 60-mile radius. And I just want to make sure that there is funding for what they do. And I'm a bit confused with the ESG and the other CDB. And I do apologize, but I'm just really fuzzy on that part. That's the one part that of this budget that I would have question with as presented.
Okay. ETLP applied for both CDBG and ESG funding this year. In previous years, they've applied for ESG funding alone, except for 1 year that got a little weird, but it's weird. So the issue with them getting ESG funding is that long time ago, before the modern ESG program was called, it's still ESG, but it stood for something slightly different. Agencies applied for funding and TTLP was awarded ESG funds because at that point, their project, the transitional shelter, qualified under that program. So at some points, I want to say about 10 years ago, ESG changed. Transitional shelters, these long-term shelters, this essentially, you have to think of it as short-term supportive housing or long-term emergency shelters. They fall into like this sort of in-between. HUD determined those were not how they wanted to spend money anymore. So HUD said transitional shelters aren't allowed anymore. But if you received money in the past and you continue to receive ESG money, you can keep getting ESG money. You're grandfathered in to receive ESG money. The 1 year where TTLP does not get ESG money, at that point, from that point onwards, they no longer can apply for ESG money. So they can apply for CDBG. They've always been able to apply for CDBG. But if they are zeroed out this year on ESG, they will no longer be able to ask for ESG money in the future. And that's the whole grandfathering thing in.
I wanted to make sure because I was just a little fuzzy on that. So if we fund them in the SG budget, then we're saving the money on CDB, which will then allow us to
Exactly.
fund some of the other programs.
Yes, that is exactly. And we had a question into Catholic Charities indicating whether or not the ESG funding, what would be their priority? Whether they would stay within the ESG funding grandfathered in, or whether they wanted to go to human services, but that we couldn't probably do both. And I think that that's a fair question to ask.
What would you like me to ask them?
Which is their preference? Would they like to stay grandfathered into the ESG grant and forego the CDB, which we obviously cannot fund this year if we're giving them that money? And we can discuss that next week, but it looks like, we probably want to keep them into something that they're grandfathered into.
Just so you know, you
They
do have
need-
the option of funding them both CDBG
Right,
and
but
ESG.
this year probably not, which is if we didn't do the ESG, we would preclude them from.
Well,
ever-
I'm giving you
No,
your options.
no,
You
I
can choose how
understand,
you
but
wish to act, yeah.
From a practical standpoint, this year, it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to do this with all the other outstanding things we have to consider with the money that we've got.
I just don't want to lose programming. It was just if we could switch budgets, but I just, is that a need to, is that going to be an agency question, Steve, or that's just within our purview?
Whether they prefer ESG or CDBG. I don't know. I can tell from past experiences, I think they would prefer to keep getting ESG money. CDBG is much, much more competitive, but I mean, we've got 2 or 3 new agencies this year applying for ESG, so it's getting competitive too. So it's difficult to compare the two.
All right, so we've put in their recommendations at this point on the ESG funding. We have put in our initial CDBG feeler amounts. Are we comfortable where we're at for this point? And now we want to wait for the answers to these questions and Rebecca's return for the next Wednesday meeting?
Sounds good.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
shaking head no up there.
We've
So
gotten past the
just-
hardest part.
Just as a reminder, you still have to do capital projects at some point.
Oh, shoot.
You still have to do the overall worksheet for other things. A lot of these are city salaries, but it's also things such as code enforcement. Well, that's city salary. The rehab program, first ward action council, senior housing repair program, demolitions, that kind of thing. Those still need to be done as well as the home. ESG is sort of filled out now. So you still have that. You still have to vote as well, and you still have to work out any final kinks in the CDBG services.
And I think we can do that if we come in next week, focused on what we need to do. Usually those
2 weeks.
2 weeks, sorry, on the 12th. Usually those parts of the budget are less discussional than this part is. This is the hardest part. We've made great progress, and I think we can tie it up next week. And we'll get our questions answered about the Boys and Girls Club community policing and the TTLP Were there other issues that we wanted clarified? Those are the
Seeing
ones I
that, no.
remember.
Our initial numbers last year, I think we were over by $72,000 or something. It was some obscene number when we were filling them in. Remember when we were filling them in, we were in the red. So to be at a point where we're kind of able to
not-
go back and add some more money is not in a bad place, but not where I'm comfortable with the numbers either. So let's,
What I will do is I will send everyone a copy of this with the current numbers. I encourage you to play around with the numbers, look at the other parts of the worksheet as well. Start experimenting, throwing some numbers in, see if that works out and you like it or whatever. So bring those numbers next time.
sounds good.
I have a serious question.
Yes,
Will you have food next time? So I know. I should
Yes.
Bring something. Okay.
yes.
That's all. I just wanted to know, if there would be food next time. So that's all.
So anybody allergic to pistachios besides myself? No? Okay, so pistachio swirl cake, bundt cake will be here next time I'm gonna make. It's my forte. It was my birthday cake every year until age 35 when my mom realized she was poisoning me because I was allergic to pistachios. But I've got a recipe now where I use imitation pistachio flavoring, so I don't want to know what the imitation is, but it works, and I'll be making that as part of my stuff next time.
So the next meeting is April 17th.
Correct. All right, we need to do our final attendance, starting up with Deborah.
Thank you. Deborah Hogan, mayoral appointee.
Thank you. Rebecca,
Rebecca Porter, First District.
John Brunza, mayoral appointee.
Eileen Hughes, second district.
Kenya Middleton, ex officio.
Ebony Hato, District 4, Secretary.
Mary Ann Callahan, mayoral appointee.
Ellen Austin, District 6.
Shallow Lachlan, member at large.
Jordan Trice, District 5.
Justin McGregor, Chair, District 7. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Deborah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. We're adjourned. Thank you. We'll see you on the 17th.